February 2026. The air the world breathes is thick with the scent of gunpowder. In the skies above Tehran, American fighter jets circle like birds of prey. Inside the Oval Office of the White House, the oldest president in American history sits in his golden chair, having just issued the ultimate command. The assassination of Ali Khamenei has been confirmed. The world is teetering on the absolute edge of World War III. This man, just 2 years prior, was a convicted felon. 3 years prior, he was dismissed by the elites, his political career declared dead. This is a man whose casinos went bankrupt 4 times, whose businesses collapsed 6 times, and who became a symbol of intense hatred for millions. How does a single individual rise from collecting rent in the working-class neighborhoods of New York to controlling the most powerful seat in the world? This story is not just about Donald John Trump. This is a story about the fractures within America, the modern human thirst for power, and the absolute terror of defeat. Today, on Epocadia, we will examine in exhaustive detail how skyscrapers became political stepping stones, how reality television became a trap for the masses, and ultimately, how one man managed to redraw the map of the world. Brace yourselves. This is the untold, shocking, and complete biography of Donald John Trump. The story begins on June 14, 1946. New York was just dusting itself off in the aftermath of World War II victory. Donald was born in Jamaica Hospital in Queens, New York. But Donald's story actually begins before his birth, deep within the bloodline of his father, Fred Trump. Fred Trump, the son of German immigrants, was no ordinary businessman. He was the very embodiment of ruthless success. During the poverty-stricken era of New York, he amassed a massive fortune by building and renting out properties. But Fred's love for his children was strictly measured in currency and results. In the Trump household, mediocrity was forbidden. You were either a winner or you were a loser. There was no middle ground. Although Donald was the 4th child, his relationship with his father was entirely different. Even as a young boy, Donald possessed an untamed fury. He was a stubborn child who would punch his teachers at school, relentless until he got exactly what he wanted. When Fred looked at his son, he recognized the killer instinct within him. Fred would tell him, "Donald, you have to be a killer. The world is a cruel place. If you don't eat them, they will eat you." This philosophy became the bedrock of Donald's mind. To lose was to die. To compromise was to show weakness. Inside that massive 23-room mansion in Queens, Donald was called a millionaire by the age of 8. His father gave his children an allowance of $20,000 a year, which translates to over $250,000 in today's money. Donald learned about wealth not from textbooks, but directly from his father's pockets. As Donald's stubbornness escalated, Fred made a drastic decision. He forcibly sent 13-year-old Donald to the New York Military Academy. This single decision altered the trajectory of Donald's life forever. There, Donald did not have a gold-plated bed. Instead, he found iron discipline, midnight inspections, and uniforms. The military academy taught him one fundamental truth: winning is not everything. It is the only thing. Donald began to stand out in sports and fierce competition. He became the captain of the baseball team. He tasted the intoxicating power of giving orders to others. It was within those academy walls that Donald learned presence. He was trained on how to walk, how to speak, and how to command submission from those around him. When he walked out of that academy, he was no longer just a wealthy teenager. He was a young soldier, deeply thirsty for authority. In the late 1960s, America was convulsing under the weight of the Vietnam War. Young men were being drafted and sent to the front lines. Donald, meanwhile, was a student at the prestigious Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. Because of his education, he received 4 draft deferments. But as his graduation approached, the war was still raging. Just days before Donald was eligible to be deployed to the jungles of Vietnam, a remarkable event occurred. A medical doctor provided a document stating that Donald Trump suffered from bone spurs in his heels. That single piece of paper saved Donald from the valley of the shadow of death. To this day, historians debate this miraculous timing. Was Donald truly in pain? Or was this a favor bought and paid for by his wealthy father to save his son from the draft? Wherever the truth lies, one fact remains absolute. Donald did not go to the jungles of Vietnam. Instead, he marched straight into the concrete jungle of Manhattan. He chose not to fight a war that changed the lives of others. He chose to fight the war of building his own name. If you are captivated by this deep dive into the historical forces and psychological profiles that shape our modern world, make sure to subscribe to Epocadia right now. Hit the like button and join our community as we continue to unravel the rest of this incredible narrative. The year is 1971. New York City was spiraling into an unprecedented crisis. The streets were drowning in garbage, crime was king, and banks had stopped lending money to the city. Investors were fleeing New York in droves. But looking at the chaos, 25-year-old Donald Trump did not see fear. He saw an empire waiting to be claimed. Up until then, Donald had been operating strictly under the shadow of his father, collecting rent from middle-class apartments in Queens and Brooklyn. But Donald was not built for Queens. He craved fame. He wanted his name written across the Manhattan skyline. "Dad," he said one day, "we can't stay here. We have to go to Manhattan." But Fred was terrified. Fred was a man of caution and frugality. To Fred, Manhattan was a jungle that ate people alive. To Donald, it was a playground. When Donald finally crossed into Manhattan, he hit a massive wall. The Manhattan elite viewed this boy from Queens as a vulgar outsider. He had money, but he lacked prestige. He quickly realized that the only way to earn that respect was to build something colossal right in the heart of the city. In 1973, the Trump family faced a devastating threat. The United States Department of Justice filed a massive lawsuit against the Trump Organization, accusing them of racial discrimination against Black Americans seeking to rent apartments. For any real estate company, this was a death sentence. Fred Trump trembled. He told Donald they needed to surrender and settle the case quietly. But that same week, in an exclusive nightclub, Donald met a man who would become his dark mentor, the power-hungry and ruthless lawyer, Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was no ordinary attorney. He was the former right-hand man to Senator Joseph McCarthy during the communist witch hunts of the 1950s. Cohn was a man who loved destroying people, who bowed to no law, and who believed not in justice, but only in absolute victory. Donald explained the existential threat of the Justice Department's lawsuit. Roy Cohn stared into Trump's eyes and delivered a masterclass in warfare. "Donald, tell them to go to hell, and then you sue them back." Cohn instilled 3 golden rules of life into Donald's mind. Rule number 1, attack, attack, attack. Rule number 2, never admit you are wrong, never apologize. Rule number 3, claim victory, even in total defeat. Donald absorbed this dark philosophy into his very bones. Guided by Cohn, Trump countersued the United States government for $100 million. Although the case eventually settled with Trump agreeing to change his practices, Donald stepped in front of the cameras and declared to the world, "We won!" This psychological tactic became the foundation of Donald Trump's identity, a strategy he would utilize all the way to the brink of global conflict in 2006. With Roy Cohn acting as his sword, Trump desperately needed a project to shock Manhattan. The decaying Commodore Hotel, sitting right next to Grand Central Terminal, was on the verge of demolition. Every seasoned developer had abandoned it, calling it an impossible nightmare. But Donald saw his golden ticket. The problem was, he didn't have the money. Even his father refused to finance such a reckless gamble. So Donald executed a stroke of pure manipulative genius. He approached city officials and delivered a stark ultimatum. "If I don't rebuild this rotting hotel, your city will decay even further. Give me a 40-year tax abatement." Utilizing his extraordinary salesmanship and Roy Cohn's political muscle, Trump secured a historic tax break worth an estimated $400 million. When the hotel opened in 1980 as the Grand Hyatt, Manhattan was stunned. The kid from Queens had pulled off a miracle. Donald Trump was no longer just a real estate developer. He was perceived as a magician. Politicians and the media began lining up at his door. One victory was never enough for Donald. He needed his name carved into history. He set his sights on Fifth Avenue, the beating heart of New York, deciding to demolish the famous Bonwit Teller building to construct one of the most luxurious skyscrapers in the world. While building it, Donald understood a profound psychological truth. People do not just want a building. They want the illusion of ultimate luxury. He draped the structure in gold, reflective glass, and slapped his name across it in massive, undeniable letters. Trump Tower. The construction, however, was mired in controversy. He was accused of using undocumented Polish immigrants to demolish the site. He ordered historic sculptures on the building's facade to be smashed to pieces. When the media erupted in outrage, Trump remembered Roy Cohn's rule: attack back. The controversy only fueled his fame. When Trump Tower opened in 1983, New York surrendered. Celebrities, Hollywood royalty, and global elites fought for apartments inside. Trump had become America's idol of wealth. It was during this era that he published The Art of the Deal, cementing his status. Donald Trump was now synonymous with the word success. Looking down at his empire from the penthouse of Trump Tower, Donald stood beside his first wife, Ivana Trump. An immigrant from Czechoslovakia, Ivana was fierce, brilliant, and just as power-hungry as Donald. Together, they became the ultimate power couple of the 1980s, raising 3 children: Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric. But in the Trump household, love was inextricably linked to business. Ivana successfully managed his casinos and hotels, yet Donald harbored a deep psychological fear, the fear of being overshadowed. Ivana's rising fame became a threat to his ego. In his mind, there could only be one king on the throne, and that king was Donald Era was living on borrowed time. As the 1980s closed, Donald made a fatal miscalculation. He walked into the gambling mecca of Atlantic City, a decision that would drag him to the very edge of total annihilation. The year is 1988. Donald Trump ruled the Manhattan skyline. But for Donald, enough was a word that simply did not exist. He turned his eyes toward the New Jersey coastline. Atlantic City was struggling to become the gambling capital of America, and Trump decided to walk in and build the 8th wonder of the world, the Trump Taj Mahal. This is where the grand illusion of Trump's psychology began to crack. The construction required $1.1 billion. Trump didn't have that kind of cash. Even his father thought the debt was suicidal. So Trump turned to junk bonds, high-risk loans with massive 14% interest rates. Financial experts screamed warnings, stating that the casino would need to clear $1 million a day just to survive. But Trump didn't listen. His reality was based on grandiosity, not mathematics. He believed that if the building was beautiful enough, the money would magically appear. When the Taj Mahal opened in 1990, he paraded around like an emperor. But behind the curtain, a financial tsunami was rushing toward him. In 1990, America slipped into an economic recession. Trump's casinos began cannibalizing each other. The Taj Mahal stole customers from Trump Castle and Trump Plaza. Within months, Trump was drowning in $3.4 billion of debt. The most terrifying part? $900 million of that was personally guaranteed. This meant the banks had the power to bankrupt Donald Trump personally. The headlines blared, "Trump is finished." For Donald, this was worse than death. The image of the ultimate winner he had sold to the world was shattering. Simultaneously, his personal life imploded. His secret affair with model Marla Maples was plastered across the tabloids. Ivana Trump famously confronted him, creating a media frenzy that New York had never seen. Trump was fighting a four-front war against the banks, against his wife, against the media, and against his own crumbling psyche. In 1991, Trump sat at a table surrounded by ruthless bankers. They stripped him of his private airline, his massive yacht called the Princess, and his beloved Plaza Hotel. It was a vast and humiliating restructuring. But here, Trump deployed the greatest lesson Roy Cohn ever taught him. He looked at the bankers and called their bluff. "If you bankrupt me, my name is destroyed. If my name is destroyed, you will never get your money back, because it is my name that brings people into those casinos." The banks realized they were trapped. They were forced to keep him alive. Trump pushed his corporate entities into Chapter 11 bankruptcy 6 different times, yet he never declared personal bankruptcy. This is the greatest paradox of his career. How does a man bankrupt his businesses 6 times and remain a billionaire? The answer is simple. He was no longer a real estate developer. He had become a brand. In the mid-90s, Trump pivoted to a brilliant new strategy: licensing. "I won't build with my own money," he decided. "I will rent out my name." Other developers took on all the financial risk to build skyscrapers and paid Trump millions just to put his golden name on the side of the building. In 1996, he bought the Miss Universe and Miss USA pageants, embedding himself deeply into the entertainment industry. Millions of people globally saw him on television every year. By 2007, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He wasn't just wealthy anymore, he was a pop culture icon. From his new fortress, the luxurious Mar-a-Lago club in Florida, he began to plot his next monumental move. America was eager to watch the billionaire who survived the fall. In 2004, television producer Mark Burnett walked into Trump's office with an idea that would permanently alter history: a reality show called The Apprentice. In the real world, Trump was still fighting financial battles. But on television, he was portrayed as an all-knowing, fearless titan of industry who decided people's fates with 2 words: "You're fired." The show ran for 11 years. An entire generation of Americans grew up watching him, cementing his status as the ultimate American alpha male. But reality television was no longer enough. Behind the golden doors of Trump Tower, Donald began to dream of a different kind of power. He didn't just want to buy America, he wanted to rule it. This brings us to a crucial turning point in our narrative. If you are fascinated by how media and psychology shape global politics, you are in the right place. Subscribe to Epocadia, drop a comment with your thoughts on Trump's survival tactics, and share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. Now, let us step into the political storm. April 30th, 2011, Washington, D.C. At the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Donald Trump sat dead center in the audience. That night, President Barack Obama took the stage and unleashed a relentless comedic roast aimed directly at Trump. Trump had been aggressively pushing the birther conspiracy theory, questioning Obama's citizenship, and the president decided to humiliate him on live television. The cameras zoomed in on Trump's face. He didn't laugh, he barely moved, but behind his eyes, a volcano was erupting. Political historians point to this exact night as the moment Donald Trump decided he would take the White House. In Trump's psychology, humiliation requires an overwhelming disproportionate response. The only cure for being laughed at was total absolute conquest. Trump wasn't a traditional politician, but he was a master of audience building. By championing the false claim that Barack Obama wasn't born in America, he tapped into a deep, visceral anger. He discovered a massive demographic of forgotten Americans, people exhausted by the Washington elite. His political loyalty had fluctuated for years, shifting between Democrat, the Reform Party, and Republican. But when he officially registered as a Republican again in 2012, his objective was clear: hijack the established party structure and forge his own movement. Trumpism was born. June 16, 2015, Trump Tower. Donald and Melania Trump descended the golden escalator, an image seared into American political history. He announced his candidacy for President of the United States. His speech was completely unhinged by traditional standards. "When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best," he declared, accusing immigrants of bringing drugs and crime. The world was paralyzed with shock. The media mocked him, predicting his campaign would collapse in 3 months. But Trump used their mockery as fuel. He promised to build a great wall and declared he would make America great again. Those words caught fire like nothing the establishment had ever seen. During the Republican primaries, 16 seasoned politicians lined up against him. Trump systematically dismantled them using vicious nicknames: Low Energy Jeb, Little Marco, Lying Ted. He transformed the political arena into a brutal reality show. The public was captivated by the drama. Trump understood a fundamental media law: all publicity is good publicity. While news networks dedicated hours to criticizing him, they were giving him billions of dollars in free advertising. By May 2016, the party of Abraham Lincoln had fallen completely under the control of the kid from Queens. His ultimate opponent was Hillary Clinton, the very embodiment of the political establishment. Trump painted himself as the ultimate outsider, despite leaked audio tapes and massive controversies that would have destroyed any other candidate. Trump survived. He weaponized a new term: fake news. He labeled the press the enemy of the people. He told his supporters, "They're not coming after me, they're coming after you. I'm just standing in the way." America fractured in two. Election night, November 8, 2016. Every major poll predicted a landslide victory for Hillary Clinton. But as the night deepened, the impossible happened. Florida fell to Trump. Ohio fell to Trump. Finally, the blue wall of Pennsylvania and Michigan shattered. The world watched in stunned silence. Donald John Trump became the 45th president of the United States. It wasn't just an election, it was a cultural revolution. For the first time in history, a man with zero military or government experience had captured the White House. But the real war had just begun. January 20th, 2017. Washington, D.C. was shrouded in gray. Standing on the steps of Capitol Hill, Trump placed his hand on the Bible. As he took the oath of office, the establishment elites watching him had no idea what was coming. His inaugural address was dark and menacing. "This American carnage stops right here and stops right now," he declared. It was a declaration of war against the very institutions he now commanded. He hadn't come to govern. He had come to dismantle. The moment he entered the Oval Office, Trump bypassed the traditional press. He governed through Twitter. For the first time, a sitting president would wake up at 3 a.m. and fire off statements that moved global markets, fired cabinet secretaries, and threatened nuclear war. He kept the world in a state of constant adrenaline-fueled anxiety. By forcing the media to react to him constantly, he maintained absolute control over the narrative. His first term was clouded by controversy. The accusation that Russia interfered in the 2016 election haunted his administration. His abrupt firing of FBI Director James Comey triggered the appointment of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. For 2 years, Trump was under siege. Though the report did not establish a criminal conspiracy, Trump masterfully spun the investigation as a witch hunt, using it to solidify his supporters' loyalty. In foreign policy, Trump threw the rulebook out the window. His escalating war of words with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un terrified the globe. He called Kim Little Rocket Man. But true to his reality TV instincts, he turned the terror into a spectacle, becoming the first U.S. president to step into North Korea, later claiming they fell in love. It was a diplomacy of shock and awe. Domestically, his hardline immigration policies, including a zero-tolerance approach that led to family separations at the border, sparked international outrage. Yet, Trump refused to apologize, even triggering the longest government shutdown in history to secure funding for his border wall. In 2019, a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, where Trump asked for a political favor regarding his rival Joe Biden, led to his first impeachment. Though acquitted by the Senate, the scars remained. As 2020 began, Trump seemed invincible, but an unseen enemy emerged: COVID-19. Trump initially downplayed the virus, calling it a problem that would disappear like a miracle. But as the death toll skyrocketed and the economy crashed, the image of success he had spent a lifetime building was severely fractured. November 2020. After days of counting, Joe Biden was declared the winner. For any normal politician, it was over. But in Trump's universe, defeat is not an option. He immediately engineered the big lie, claiming the election was rigged and stolen. Despite dozens of court cases failing to prove fraud, Trump refused to concede. He was rewriting reality to protect his ego. January 6th, 2021, thousands of supporters gathered in Washington. "If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore," Trump shouted. The resulting storming of the U.S. Capitol shocked the globe. Blood was spilled in the halls of democracy. Trump watched the chaos unfold on television, his silence speaking volumes, before finally telling the rioters to go home. Exiled to Mar-a-Lago, Trump faced a mountain of legal peril. Indicted in multiple jurisdictions, he became the first former president convicted of felony crimes, found guilty on 34 counts in a New York courtroom regarding hush money payments. Yet, true to form, he used the criminal convictions as a badge of honor, fundraising millions off his mugshot. Then came July 13th, 2024. At a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, shots rang out. Trump grabbed his ear and fell to the ground. Seconds later, surrounded by Secret Service agents, with blood streaming across his face, he stood up, raised his fist to the sky, and screamed, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" In that fraction of a second, he transcended politics. To his followers, he became an immortal, untouchable martyr. November 2024. In the greatest political comeback in American history, Trump defeated Kamala Harris, securing 312 electoral votes. He returned to the White House not just as a president, but as a man seeking absolute retribution. Entering office in January 2025, his actions were swift and apocalyptic to the establishment. Partnering with Elon Musk to head the Department of Government Efficiency, they fired 30,000 federal workers in weeks, gutting entire agencies. By 2026, he launched Operation Metro Surge, utilizing military force to deport millions, causing widespread civil unrest. He reshaped the global economy with punishing tariffs and bent NATO to his will. But the true climax of his imperial presidency arrived in early 2026. Tensions with Iran reached a boiling point. Operating with ruthless military precision, Trump ordered a devastating airstrike that eliminated Iran's supreme leader. As Iranian missiles rained down on American bases in response, the world held its breath, standing on the precipice of global annihilation. Through his television screens, Trump told the world he was securing peace through overwhelming strength. The boy from the military academy was finally commanding the globe. Why did this happen? Why did Donald Trump choose this path of fire and fury? The answer lies in that house in Queens back in the 1950s. Donald is still proving to his father that he is a killer, that he is the ultimate winner. Donald Trump didn't change history. He merely exposed the hidden, dark nature of human desire. He is a mirror reflecting our obsession with power, victory, and domination. You may view him as a savior or a destroyer, but one truth is absolute: the world will never be the same. He burned down the old establishment and forged a dangerous, unpredictable new reality. From the streets of Queens to the golden chair of the Oval Office, the story of Donald John Trump is the ultimate American paradox. Thank you for joining us on this monumental journey here on Epocadia. If this deep historical analysis brought you value, please subscribe, like the video, and share your perspective in the comments below. We bring history out of the shadows. Until next time.